Welcome to In Studio from Simply Timeless. I'm Jay Daniels. This week we're joined by New York's own Marty Elkins. She's known to many throughout the jazz community as a singer who really knows how to swing. We're going to talk about how the sounds of R&B and soul music from the radio influenced her unique style. Plus, Marty will share a few details about a new project, 'Tis Autumn, that she recorded with bassist Mike Richmond. Let's go back to Marty's childhood in Jersey City, New Jersey. Here she shares the stories about hearing music in the 1950s with her mom.
When did I first hear music ever in life? And I have to say, although I'm dating myself, it was in the early 50s or early part of the. And I remember sitting in my mom's car, and Julius LaRosa came on the radio with his novelty song, "Skinny Mini Mini Fishtail." You probably don't remember that.
I've heard of Mr. LaRosa, but I don't know the song.
Yeah, and then "Hey Kumbadi," da-da-da-da. Anyway, for some reason, those songs were popular then. And I guess for a child, like "Skinny Mini Fishtail" would be a great song for a child. It was like sort of a cartoon. And that was my first music that I can remember hearing. And I remember really liking some artists on the radio, like, Brenda Lee. I used to be crazy about Frankie Lyman when I was a kid. All these, like, if they had rhythm in their singing, I think I was attracted to it.
You were born in Jersey City, New Jersey, if I have my information right. You never spent any time in the South, though, did you?
No.
Because somehow, even though you've never been in the South, a lot of that Southern soul, a lot of that grit comes through in those recordings. Do you ever notice that?
Thank you very much for saying so. The record before, I call them records still, the CD before that was called "Walking by the River." That was just the same, pretty much the same band, except a different guitarist. Both guitarists were great. One was Howard Alden, and then Fat Daddy, it was James Chirillo, who was the greatest rhythm feel of anybody. They're both great. Anyway, so the "Walking by the River," I had like a couple of bluesy-ish songs. Not many. I think the one that got the most airplay was "Is You Is or Is You Ain't My Baby."
Yeah.
And I don't know. I wasn't as careful in choosing the tunes for that one. I just went with songs I always liked and stuff. And then I noticed, I said, well, people always tell me I have a good feeling for blues and that kind of thing. So let me just test couple of different feels for the next record and see how they do. And the ones that were the blues-oriented ones, like Revival Day, Fat Daddy, that's all there is to that. That kind of had a country feel. People like that. Cow Cow Boogie, I was surprised didn't get more attention because I really liked that one a lot.
I'm trying to think. There was a big band recording of that in the 30s or the early 40s. Didn't Ella Fitzgerald record that song at one time, the Cow Cow Boogie?
She did with the Ink Spots. That's my favorite rendition. Oh, man, she did a great job. But the one that had the hit with it was Ella Mae Morse. Her sister was married to Al Cohen. I know that's a aside. That's random bits of knowledge, but that's true, I think. And I think that's Joe Cohen's mother.
Sure.
Ella Mae Morse's sister.
Now, you were mentioning some of the artists that you heard, whether it was on the radio or records growing up. Was there anyone in your family who, was musically inclined, or was this just, were they more, say, passive listeners of music?
Jay, I have to tell you, my family is not really, they're mostly business people, and my family's a highly intelligent bunch, I have to say, and they're all successful. Nobody's a musician, nobody's an artist. I think my thing was that I never could sleep. So when I was a kid, I was just glued to the radio, and I would listen to wee hours of the night. And the soul stations had the good music on, to my taste. So I was glued to like the station WWRL and Jocko's Rocket Ship Show. And, singers like Laverne Baker really rang my chimes. I like Laverne Baker. As I mentioned, I like Brenda Lee. I like Louis Jordan, but I didn't become aware of Louis Jordan until I was in college. So like Frankie Lyman, Laverne Baker, Ruth Brown, those singers.
So
and Esther Phillips, all those really great soul singers. I mean, they really had it going on. They just moved you emotionally. And Laverne Baker swung her ass off. And later on, I got a record. Laverne Baker sings Bessie, and she has the greatest jazz group. And she is she's just fantastic. I liked Etta James back then. And then as I got older, when I discovered Etta Jones, I became crazy about her. But when I was in college, somebody gave me a Billie Holiday record, like the box set of the Billie Holiday with Teddy Wilson. And I was entranced. I was like fascinated to the point of like, horrified almost because it was scary. It was so good. It was like, oh my God, what is this? So I listened to the Billie, and then I ended up in a Woolworths someday when I lived in Boston. I lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts for a long time. And I ran into the Lady in Satin album, and it was in the dollar bin. It was in the dollar bin, believe it or not. And I took it home, and it was like, that was the end. That was, to me, I thought Billie was at her peak of artistry when she was very towards the end. I thought she was just the most moving singer. It was incredible. So I listened to that record a lot. All the ballads. Every one was a ballad. What a record.
There was a friend of mine, and I had to correct him on this. We were talking about jazz music, and he brought up, he didn't know the title of it. He's like, what are the last albums Billie Holiday did with the strings? I said, Lady in Satin with Ray Ellis. He said, yeah. He said, I thought it was overdone. Why in the world would the record company make her do an album like that? And I said, that was Billie's idea. She always loved the sound of strings behind her vocals. The one that gets me every time is when she sings the verse to For All We Know.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, it's playing in my head now that you're saying it. It's every little brain cell in my head is like, knows every nuance of that thing.
What is it? Sweetheart, the night is growing old. Sweetheart, my love for you is told. I mean, the songs that you have done on both of your most recent albums, it's not like they were written yesterday. These are from another time, another place. But you need to talk about Billie Holiday and Teddy Wilson. I remember when we were first starting this show, we had to build our library of music, so I bought a 2 CD set of the Essential Billie Holiday from Columbia, and it had a lot of these early recordings that you talked about. And the one from her early years, there are two, and they both tug at the heartstrings. Billie knew how to sing about the really rough parts of life. Solitude from Duke Ellington. But the song that I heard, and I hadn't caught it until last year. I just happened to listen to it. I was driving back from Jersey when I heard the song Gloomy Sunday by Billie Holiday. And I think the things that those songs have in common with what you bring, even though Fat Daddy is a fun album, I couldn't help but dance and swing right along with you on some of those songs. You have to be able to sing these songs that you talk about, the Billie Holiday works. The ballads, the songs that really come from the darker times of life. There's a certain vulnerability that you have to almost expose yourself when you're singing these songs. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you have to feel them. And that's what I loved about Billie so much. And thank you so much for saying that about my singing. That means the world to me, because the thing that gets me with Billie is that it was like she was talking to you. It's like speech. It's like it's song, of course. She's a beautiful musician and had every instinct that you need to be a great singer, but she also had that entre-nous. It feels like she's just right there talking to you in your ear. And it's, you feel what she conveys that. Weirdly, like Bob Dylan had that quality, like they're talking to you. Like Ella Fitzgerald's the best voice ever. It's addictive, it's sound and everything, but sometimes you don't really, feel the connection as much. You hear the beauty of it, you hear the artistry of it and the skill. It's a great experience. But the actual communication, Billie really had that.
Were you able to pick up on that connection even, sitting in your dorm room in college?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just, I guess I could say I had an easy upbringing and stuff, but everybody has heartaches that they've gone through and times when they've been hurt and frustrated and abandoned and felt lonely. Everybody, it's universal.
What were you going to college for in Boston?
Actually, I was in I went to BU and I was in sort of a general, what was it called? The Division of General Education. I think it was kind of for kids that got like high college boards, but not so great grades. So they wanted to let you in, but they didn't quite know what to do with you. So I stayed there for a couple of years, but then I dropped out of BU and I went to Goddard College for a little while just because I didn't know what else to do. And then I actually graduated from there, but I was like an art major there. And then I went back to school in later years and I became a music therapist. I went to Montclair. Yeah, I went to Montclair, great college.
I did not know that you were in music therapy. That is a very fulfilling work to have, and I applaud you for having gotten into that. Some of the people I respect most when it comes to music, that's the field they're in, is music therapy. And is that something that I know you obviously had to, you went to school for it. Was that something that you were able to also do professionally as a music therapist?
Yeah. Oh, I've been working for I almost have 20 years in at Metropolitan Hospital, which is a great place to work because the patients are so interesting, and many of them are musical, and it really helps them. I work in psychiatric, and it really, it's not like I don't do anything really deeply delving into psychotherapy because they're transient, really. They're in and out. The average stay is about 2 weeks, but a lot of times people with mental illness are isolated. And so if you can get them into a group and get them communicating with music and, acting as a unit, it's wonderful for them. It's really been good for them. I've had very much fun doing it too. But I'm really I'm about at the end of that career at this point. And I really want to go more full-time into singing. I mean, I've been singing the whole time before I went to school for music therapy, during the time I was in school. And then once I got into my job, I did it less, but then in the last, I would say 5-6 years, I've been stepping it up and making these recordings and getting better gigs. I'm getting, better profile gigs than I've had before.
You were talking about your music therapy work. Even though I'm not accredited, my full-time work, well, up until all of this, I've been working a lot in the senior communities, which I don't know how much you see on Facebook or not. But I work in not only the independent and assisted living settings, but also in the memory care facilities. And one of my favorites, I don't think is too far from you. It's over in New Rochelle, a place called Willow Towers. I have played for their independent, and I've also played for their memory care neighborhood. And I think playing for a club audience, which I have not done a lot of, I have not done many public shows, but I think there's sort of a different dynamic between, you playing in the club and you're playing for, say, a psych ward or playing for a memory care facility. And I think in each of those settings, there's a great appreciation for the music. But certainly when you are playing to those who are dealing with, the trials and tribulations that life has thrown their way, I have met people who didn't know their name, didn't know where they were, why they were there. And yet when they hear a song, they come back to life.
Yeah, that's a different part of the brain. That's why people with stuttering things or, like speech impediments can sing fluently because it's a different part of the brain. And I think that's the last to go. And I think the people, I know for a fact that, and I'm sure you've experienced this with people in, senior facilities and stuff, they like the songs from when they were young and, their heyday. And they stay, those are the songs they love.
Well, and I think that's a part of the magic of the music that you do. This timeless music from 50 or more years ago. I mean, there's a reason why people continue to record it. I did want to try to fill in the gaps because I know that you've traveled to many places, you perform with many ensembles, but why is it for you? Why is it so important that you sing, that you perform? Is it, to hone your skill, or is it to offer something a little bit more meaningful to the audience?
I think it's all of that, but I think there's also a flow that you get when you're performing that it feels, I think anyone that does any kind of performing, like be an athlete or, a dancer or an athlete or something, when you do it, you have a flow that feels, it makes you feel the most alive that you ever feel. Like as the day goes along, you feel it's like, it sort of comes through you, it takes over and, you're out of it at a certain point. It's just like, it's the music and you're just a part of it, even though you're making it with other people, it's just a good feeling. It feels exhilarating. I always feel like, after a gig, I feel charged up. I feel like,
That's why when you do a late night gig, you can't just go to bed when you're done. You've got to, you want to go to the next show, go hear somebody else,
In my 30s, I started going to Jimmy Ryan's. Those were my formative years at Jimmy Ryan's because I get to meet all these old guys. And honestly, everybody pretty much is gone from those days. I mean, because they were older guys. They were guys from the big band era, the swing era.
Yeah.
I still have one very close friend, John Halsey. He was a piano player in Max Kaminsky's band, and I used to sing with that band. They used to have me, and they, all the guys told me, you have a nice voice, dear, kid. I mean, I was a kid to them, and
Kind
like
of patting you on the head while they said this, yeah.
well, but no, they meant really well. And they said,
Yeah.
but what you need to do is you've got to go and learn piano because you'll work. But as just a stand-up singer, it's too much competition. It'd be very difficult for you. So do that. So I went to a guy in Brooklyn, this guy, Johnny Solo, his name was, and he got me up and running pretty quickly on piano, but I started really too late to really be a pianist singer, although I did work sometimes as a pianist singer. Don't ask me. I mean, it was very difficult. It was like, oh my God, I'd play a song. I was like, 1 second has elapsed. Now what do I do? So and really anybody who makes a living as a pianist singer really primarily is usually a pianist because you really got to play. I mean, you got to be able to transpose and people want to sit in with you. You have to be, a functioning musician, which I never really got to that level, but I got good enough that I could become a music therapist because, you have your stock little repertoire and I have a good enough ear that I could pick out things now. I could pick out things and follow them. I got much better as a piano player by doing music therapy. And also it helped my performing because I had a little stage fright for many years. And that helped me sort of get over it because psychiatric patients will tell you if you stink, they'll tell you right out.
Senior citizens will do the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
There are some people, and I'd really like to hear your opinion on this because you've had a myriad of influences. There are some people who say, this is jazz. This is not jazz. This is pop. This is R&B. I don't know, Marty, but what I find is, like any musical genre, they mix with each other. They influence each other. And I think if I had to venture, listening to your recordings, those soul influences, those R&B influences, all of that plays into your delivery of jazz too.
I think so too. I'm seeming to, I guess I'm gravitating more to it because I do have an affinity. I mean, most of those, like Fat Daddy and Revival, even Cow Cow Boogie, those come so easily to me. Usually those were 1 or 2 takes. I mean, I didn't have to pour over them. I mean, the standards, especially the ballads, they needed a couple of workovers, but the other ones, they just came right out. I think I did Revival Day, honestly, on 1 take.
Oh, I love the B3 player on that one. Oh, that was fun.
Oh, that's Joel Diamond. He's also was the producer of the 2 albums. He's a really experienced musician. He's a really great, he played in many well-known groups, and he also writes for ballets and he writes for movies. He was on the soundtrack of Dead Man Walking. He was really a good producer because we're real close. So if I did anything that he didn't think was up to snuff, he would tell me it stunk, but he would have me laughing so hard that I was never offended. He always got a good performance out of me, that guy. He always could. He always could get me laughing, and he respects me enough to, so I know that I'm in good hands and that he doesn't really condescend to me ever. So he doesn't mind telling me the truth.
Yeah, there's an old line I like to tell people. It's like, look, if I didn't respect you, I wouldn't tell you to shut up, So you talk about how a lot of these songs come naturally to you. Let me dig at this a bit more if I can. Is there music in your repertoire? And I'm sure there is. But are there certain songs that you can think about where you do have to challenge yourself and work a little bit harder to deliver them to the audience?
I think that the biggest challenge for me now is improvising, and I'm really, really into it. I love to do it, but I don't have enough confidence yet to do it as well as I'd like to do it. I can do it, but I mean, I don't feel it doesn't come as naturally to me, but I'm really working on it. And I never had to work on the other stuff. I just came in by osmosis, but this is actually, having to drill things and learn, solos and transcribe solos and all that stuff, which I've been doing for years. I started doing it years ago, studying with Judy Niemak. She's an excellent improviser and singer. And I was studying, for my technique, I studied a little bit with Amy London, who's close. They're both close friends of mine, those girls. But, they showed me, ways to work on things. And, just everything just isn't. I mean, what they say, 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration.
That's about it. And I don't know about you, but the idea of offering a scat solo, whether it's solo or whether it's just at the piano or with an ensemble, that scares me. That is outside of my wheelhouse.
But even like just learning how to sing and improvising on the melody, that was hard for me at first. I would go off the rails, but now that's good. Now I have that's like part of my skills. That's incorporated. But the scatting it's getting there. It's getting there quickly. So I'm happy about that. You know, a pianist friend of mine, Tardo Hammer, who was on my first CD, Fuse Blues. Anyway, he was also kind of the musical director on that one. He's a close friend too. When I first got into music therapy, I was like, oh my God, I have to hear my way through these songs. I was working in a hospice at that time.
Yeah.
On my internship. And he said, listen for the bass lines and you'll get the chords. And damn, that was one of the best things I ever learned. And now that's, with improvising, that's the key of it too. It's like, you got to listen to the bass movement.
There's a project that you're working on, and I'm very interested in hearing more about this. You told me that your next release is going to be with bassist Mike Richmond, and he's going to play not only bass but also cello while you provide vocals. Set the scene for what your idea for that album release is going to be.
Well, actually, it's all done. It's just a matter of putting it out now. But what we did, Mike and I worked in a group with the guitarist, Bob Wilde, for about, maybe 4 or 5 years around the North Jersey area. We had some steady gigs. We worked in a bunch of restaurants, some libraries. I mean, we got a really nice sound. In fact, if you go on my website, there's a nice demo we did. And yeah. It's a nice sounding group. We still do things occasionally. But Mike and I got really close and, very musically compatible. We were just talking on the phone one day. I said, listen, we're not getting any younger. Let's do a recording together before it's too late. I mean, it's like not that I don't want to be morbid, but the guys from Jimmy Ryan's, they're not around anymore. You don't think about that, but we're thinking about, we're about the same age. We're thinking let's do something. So we went into the studio and he had his bass and a cello. He plays beautiful cello. Because on a demo that you can hear right now on my website, he plays cello a little bit on that one too, and pizzicato cello solos and stuff. So we just did it. I tell you something, that was hard. Because when you just have a bass, sometimes I'd even wander out of the key, and it was I was shocked because I never would do that on a gig. I've never done that before, wander out of the key ever. It's hello. It's what happened there?
What sort of repertoire can we expect on this?
We did Old Devil Moon in a mellow tone, 'Tis Autumn, which will be the title of it. Because that was kind of in the mood of the whole concept of it. It was hey, 'tis autumn, let's get going here. When the red, red robin comes, bob, bob, bobbin', which is it's my favorite.
Oh, that's a fun song.
Yeah, we traded on that. We traded scats. It was really cool. Stairway to the Stars, Lullaby of the Leaves, My Mother's Eyes, which is I like sweet old songs. I don't know why, but I just do. I like sweet old songs, from the 20s, kind of sweet old songs.
I don't know that song.
This much far from corny, but Ella recorded it, and Etta Jones recorded it. Honeysuckle Rose, I Ain't Got Nothing But the Blues, All or Nothing at All. So that's what we did.
Let me ask you one more official question for the interview. What has your music given you during this season of life?
I would say comfort, and also a way to get out of the fear, because this is very frightening what's going on now, especially if you're older. This could be deadly, and it's so stealthy and random. It's just hard. It's hard to deal with, and it's not just me. Everybody's having a hard time with this. It's terrifying to be involved in. Say, if I'm practicing learning a chorus of improv, it's just it takes all my attention, and that's good. Otherwise, I might go down that road of, just panic.
Marty Elkins, our in-studio guest this week from Simply Timeless. Her website is martyelkins.com. Keep an eye out for her upcoming project with bassist Mike Richmond. The name of that one, 'Tis Autumn. Until we meet again, I'm Jay Daniels, thanking you for joining us in studio.